It's Spoilerin time. This is the companion show to Cordkillers. If you've never seen Cordkillers, well, go watch that. That's where we figure out this whole crazy streaming world of television and make it understandable. Then you're going to watch some stuff and you'll come over here and we'll talk about it. This week, we are talking about Succession, Season 4, Episode 8, Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 9, and Silo, Season 1, Episode 3. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Heck yeah, dude. Where do you want to dive in first?
Let's start with the big one, the penultimate episode of Succession, Season 4, Episode 8, the election night episode, a bottle episode, kind of. They've been doing those a lot this season. It is just taking place from the close of polls until they call the election for Mencken.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad I didn't watch this last night. I'm really glad instead I woke up early this morning and came out and gave it my full attention. It's really remarkable in that every character just becomes more of themselves in the middle of this nexus. Tom, more than ever, is committed to going wherever the power is, whether that means screwing over his wife, ex-wife, mother of his child, whatever. We also see Kendall become more of who he is, somebody who is confidently announcing, I could take this crown, and then just wilting and unable to make a decision or whatever.
Yeah.
And we saw another
clearly different than the way they kept saying, what Dad would do? You know what Dad would do? And it was Dad would have not been having that conversation by that point, right? Logan Roy would have already made his decision. Carry on.
Which brings me to Roman. We'll see if it lasts, but from the very beginning of this episode to the very end of this episode, Roman was Logan Roy. Mm-hmm. He was not here for your BS. He knew the game. And like that moment that they're watching the acceptance speech as they possibly, by their media influence, coronated essentially a Donald Trump-like character or whatever, like Roman very tactically, like Logan Roy says, that's somebody we could do business with. It was remarkable. And there was a lot of opportunities to screw a lot of things up. For example, there's that moment where Tom and, what's the nephew?
Greg.
Do cocaine. I was very worried that it was going to turn into a cartoon cocaine episode, but it didn't. It was just about that awkward moment of them.
Yeah. And Tom being a little bit hyper for the next couple of scenes, right?
Right.
It didn't seem to have any effect on Greg at all, to be honest, which I thought was interesting.
I mean, outside of it, Greg had an increased tolerance for Tom's BS.
Yeah, maybe that's all. Maybe he needed that. One of the things Succession has done very well through its entire run is be able to parody real life elements, most specifically the Murdoch family, without being those real life elements. Yes, Logan Roy, very much like Rupert Murdoch. No, he is not Rupert Murdoch. They make him a believable separate character that you could imagine would also exist in the world alongside Rupert Murdoch, and they would be adversaries. I think they did a great job of doing that with election night. Yes, Mencken is roughly Trumpist, but he is not Trump. Yes, this is very similar to 2016 election, but it's also a little similar to the 2020 election. And Correct. It's got an element with that Wisconsin fire that has nothing to do with either one.
And the genius of early call of the state, because factually in 2020, Fox called.
Yeah. No, there's lots of parallels, right? But they weave it together in a way where it's like, yes, but this isn't that story just thinly veiled. And what they get when they do that is you get to the underlying truth of what causes those kinds of things. So you aren't able to say, well, this is just obviously them trying to tell this story, and their perspective is obviously this. Instead, at least the way I come to it, is I feel like, I'm getting a closer look at what motivations cause those kinds of things to happen. What behind the scenes dynamics play into us experiencing that without having the baggage of I'm explaining what actually happened.
Justin had a good insight. He pointed out like he likes Succession at its best when it is a magical world that he doesn't understand being portrayed for him. He likes it less so when it's a world that he's come very close to experiencing and they get things
Hmm.
wrong. And his big takeaway of this particular night is he's been in newsrooms when election results have been coming in and so on. And he said, like, the one part that was very difficult for him to tolerate was everybody acting like they cared. Like, because that is out of nowhere. Like Shiv is Justin's example, the kind of vindictive, awful person that would abort Tom's baby just out of spite, and then maybe later get together with Tom. It's as a result, it rang hollow to him that she would suddenly be concerned with the preservation of our respect for democracy in America.
No, that was an interesting choice to have her play the part of the voice of the audience that would say those things that she was saying, right?
Right.
And it was also disconcerting to me to have Roman out of nowhere suddenly portraying the voice of an audience that would be pro that Mencken side of the audience. I felt both of those were a little bit unexpected. Not again, Roman also not a true believer. We have never been led to believe that he's in anything but the self interest. So maybe what we're supposed to believe is that they are both caught up in the knight's rhetoric and wielding those rhetorical devices in their own interests, because they absolutely are. Roman is like, yeah, this guy will make sure that we get to do what we want to do, and Shiv doesn't want that to happen, so she of course would be prefer Jimenez on those grounds. But then they both start throwing around the rhetorical devices of the electorate. I feel like Roman's character did do it with less convincing, I believe this, and more like, no, this is just the things you say to make my side win. Whereas Shiv did, maybe Sarah Snook has just put too much good acting into it. Shiv came across as believing it, maybe.
Yeah. I also was willing to accept the idea that, in general, this is a story of, family jockeying for position, and not really a story of politics. But
Yeah.
for this particular episode, we do have to kind of, portray politics. So the phrase that popped into my mind was, "Things are rubbery. We're just gonna rubberize. Let's pretend that." Maybe Roman leans more Republican and Shiv leans more Democrat, then this is what a hyperbole of their discussion might look like.
I tend to agree with what you were implying that Justin was saying, is that neither one of them care. What they want is the person to win that helps them out. And I could easily see an episode of Succession 4 years later from now that has Shiv supporting the Republican analog, and Roman supporting the Democrat, because the interests align in a different way. That is true to what I have learned about their characters.
But we did see in the first season or two where Shiv was outside of the Waystar company and was working as in politics. She was working with the Bernie facsimile character.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and she was on that side of things then
but,
too.
but also they've established that every season ends and they set fire to it and they ask everybody to please not remember anything from the previous season.
well, I did remember it. So
Well,
Yeah, Bryce, why'd you do that?
yeah, no.
I'll take that.
uh, I think we will swing back very quickly to not having to deal with those parts. I'd be curious what folks thought of the mechanics of this. Sort of the overestimation of the importance of the media that was portrayed in affecting the election. The way the burned ballots would play out. They brought in some consultants to kind of help them figure out a believable storyline along those lines. I think we're going to get more of that in the next episode of the vote count. But I think that's a nice way to show that whatever emotions they expressed on election night, they don't really care, because there's going to be this story in the background about the vote count, and nobody's really going to care about that. Like, yeah, but it's not going to change the result, right? Or are we going to get an Al Gore thing? Maybe I don't know. It might be more 2000 than 2016, 2020.
I will say, from a writing perspective, one of my favorite moments of this episode was at some point, there's a lot of moving parts, and then suddenly I hear a news anchor saying very unnews anchory things. I'm like, that sounds like Roman talking. And then, it's immediately revealed, oh, no. Roman literally wrote this insane, it's literally
and that
Roman
wasn't
talk.
an anchor. That was a commentator, right? That was an opinion guy.
Yeah. A person behind a desk on whatever the news network is.
Well, but it was an opinion person, and that's normal in election coverage. You have the anchors who give you the very calm stuff, and then you have the table of all the people who believe differently yelling at each other, and I think that was supposed to be part of that.
Yes, but down to the cadence and the lyrical way Roman speaks and so on. I thought
it was straight out of his brain. Yeah. No, that was really well done. Couple of other scenes when Shiv finally deploys "I'm pregnant" as a weapon against Tom was a punch in the gut, and you definitely see Tom left at the end wondering if he has any allies left at all. And then the wasabi scene.
The wasabi scene was funny, and Greg trying to help by pouring LaCroix into somebody's eye.
It's only a little lemony.
I can't tell if that was pure comedy or if we're led to believe that Greg did that on purpose in order to further the agenda somehow.
Well, it certainly stopped him from being able to go right on camera in that moment, but I don't know to whose benefit or why.
And Greg even had that half scene where he was talking with the lady,
intern number 4.
Yeah, of like, well, I don't have to go right away. I don't have to send the message right away. I mean, the message could just get disappeared.
Delayed.
Well, although
which is interesting.
That scene resolves with him deciding, no, I am going to go. It's the intern that is the little angel on the shoulder that just says, well, I don't know, you could drag your feet on this and maybe shape the world. And he's like, nope, I follow the path of Tom. And by the way, Tom's instant, Tom is in a superposition because Tom chases power. Boy, oh boy, did he smell power. The moment he walked into that room, there was no question about what they were going to do.
Yeah. Just fun, solid episode of Succession, right? Anything else?
The only heavy stuff is knowing that it's the second and last. I wonder.
Cliff Singer says that that the person Greg was talking to is Kendall's assistant.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did remember her. I just couldn't remember who she was.
Right.
I knew she was someone I should have seen before, but I don't know that changes the context of that moment too much.
No. All right, folks, that is Succession, Season 4, Episode 8. Let's talk Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 9. What happened in this
my goodness. Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 9.
Roy does the press conference and does great, plays the room perfectly.
First off, there are fine moments. I am enjoying watching Nate and Jade form a healthy relationship.
Jade very clearly doesn't like Rupert. And I think that's going to play a part in Nate's redemption arc.
I enjoy seeing Nate stand up to Rupert and not say, I'm not going to just, follow you on all that stuff.
Yep.
The soccer bits, quite good. I enjoyed that there was more soccer in this one. Bryce, how did you feel about the messaging of allyship in this episode?
I didn't particularly like this episode very much. Pretty much on that line. When I was describing this episode to Brian and other folks over the past few days, it was that this is an episode that Ted Lasso wants to prove that it is the best ally. End of statement. It's not, but we don't even see Connor's coming out. They literally cut away from it. So that we can have another moment and we find out that the team captain, he was mad, but he was just mad because he cared too much. I just cared too much. Why didn't you tell me? I cared more than anybody else.
Well, and also the very end scene involves the captain explain to me the gay.
What's top and what's bottom? Like,
He's like, how do you take showers if you're the gay?
right?
You know,
like,
it felt very retro.
Yeah.
Very out of step with the current times.
very much so. And that was a major bummer, given how much time we spent teasing this story.
But at least Trent is increasingly getting very fabulously gay every single episode since it was revealed that he was gay.
Yeah, I'll buy that the captain was mad that his friend kept it as a secret and didn't trust him. That's believable, but we didn't get a really good like exploration of that, right? It was more like he just said, "Well, that was why I was mad." Like, okay, like that didn't feel believable. But the bigger omission, I agree, Bryce, is that you didn't even like they cut away from the moment, and I'm like, what? Why are we silencing? Not silencing, but why are we not seeing that? We need to see that.
Well, and also even just cutting away from the moment, I think would have been easy to look over, except for they replaced it. They injected a Ted Lasso Tedsplanation.
Oh my God.
This is like when I had a friend who was a fan of
the Bronco, the Denver Broncos.
Denver
At
Broncos.
least they finished with an acknowledgement that it was a horrible analogy.
Yes,
That's true.
and very unnecessary.
Very much. Like,
Also-
hey, you know,
also,
we're
they've
not
already
being
established-
allies enough. Yeah, I know we're all cool. I know we don't care, but we don't not care.
Also-
That's how we're allies.
Also, how like if you want to cut the ankles out from underneath whatever tension there might have been, maybe don't have this entire season involve Keely in a same-sex relationship with a billionaire, like, and then make a big deal like, oh my God, is homophobia run amok in this club?
Meanwhile-
Clearly, it's not.
Meanwhile,
hold
that
on,
whole
hold on.
Jack story just disappears. It just walks away.
Went to Argentina.
Just a text. Literally, she breaks up with Keely in the same way that this story breaks up with the viewer who was watching the show. Oh, Jack's story's done. Text message, bye-bye. Keely's going to be gone. Where's Rebecca, by the way? Is Rebecca on this show anymore?
No. Rebecca's there as Keely's friend, and they even make a comment about how the break is becoming a breakup.
But isn't Rebecca pregnant or not pregnant or
Oh,
have
no.
a psychic? Like we
just can't get pregnant. That's her
but
story.
we have no progress on her storyline. I'm with you.
She's been
Bryce.
in the
Like,
background for 5 episodes straight.
Yeah,
It's
we
really
we
frustrating.
built up a very solid Rebecca storyline, and then we stopped it for 5 episodes.
Yeah.
It's a bummer of
So,
an episode.
but-
it really is a bummer that this is
What I'm
these are the
hearing is-
decisions.
So to throw a couple of other things in here besides the criticisms, I thought the I don't care isn't good enough was a good message. It was alongside a lot of other stuff, but
Yeah.
I like that because they could have very easily been like, hey man, we don't care you're gay, and then that be it. I like that they said, hey, saying I don't care isn't good enough. I like that they went that step. I thought that was good. I also liked and to Brian, to your point, I like that they had Keely be in a same-sex relationship as a contrast to how the world of sports has not kept step with the rest of society. And I think that's real. You don't have a lot of athletes that have come out of the closet because that culture has not caught up with the rest of society.
That's interesting. You know what? I'll tip my hat to maybe that being on purpose. I don't know. It just didn't feel as on purpose.
I also think that it's not done. That the the rather easy way that this was resolved within the team, I think means that, especially when he says like, yeah, I came out to the team and that's good enough for me. I don't need to go public with it. It's going to go public somehow later in this season, and it's going to be a problem for Richmond.
Yeah. Oh, I bet Rupert, like, okay, here's what it is, right? Like, oh, I'm sure there's like a hack. There's a hack from banter, and we find, one of the players has been, all of the banter people are now de-anonymized, and we see, and then
Bryce,
Rebecca was having sex with the other guy. This guy's gay.
I hate what you're saying so much. I am now convinced it will happen.
Because why else do we still have Keely around? Why do we still I'm still really confused why we're spending so much time with Keely and Nathan over Rebecca and Ted, honestly.
And Rupert could be instrumental somehow in how this gets to the press, causing Jade to push Nate to take a stand against Rupert. I could see that possibly being a storyline they play out.
Sounds like a setup for a season 4.
Oh, I think they got time to play that out, don't they?
In one more episode?
One more episode.
There's only one more episode? I thought there were 3 more episodes.
No,
we had 10 or 12.
Oh, this might be a 12er. You know what? You might be right, Tom.
I'm almost certain we had this discussion.
Yeah, we have.
Yes, there's 12. There's 12.
I'm almost certain we just replayed back to.
We have 2 more Successions. We have 3 more Ted Lassos.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody.
All right. Anything else on Ted Lasso?
No.
All right. That is Ted Lasso season 3, episode 9. Let's talk about Silo. We had the first 2 episodes drop last week. So this week we are talking about just the single episode, the 3rd episode. And we stay with one storyline. Those first 2 episodes were kind of prologue, telling you the events that led to Ms. Nichols becoming sheriff. This story is about will she become sheriff and can she fix the engine? and so you get a lot of the politics and dynamics and judicial and why are we going to pick this inexperienced person, a little bit of backstory here and there on various characters, and then you get a nice big tense like can they fix it and keep the silo running, a never before done power shutdown, how will it work? How did you feel about these 2 approaches in this episode, Brian?
Not gonna lie, Tom, I was very upset that they titled this episode anything other than That Dude's Biceps. Boy, did he just cross his arm and flex his big biceps.
You talking about the guy in charge of mechanical?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, so hunky. So hunky. They got hunks on this show.
Like I'm gonna go subscribe to a gym now. But on top of that, yeah, this is the part where our protagonist, this is the literal refusal of the call. No, I don't want the job as sheriff.
Right.
Until she looks at the secret message on the back of the badge. We find out at the end that the secret message is truth. Oh, wait, if I do this, then I'll be able to find out the thing. This is her saying, but I have to clear up things at home. I have to prove, whatever. They fix the engine. They do the thing. Now is in the hero's journey where she enters a new world that will be strange to her all the way up at top where things still run mechanically, but with social constructs instead of physical constructs and so on. It's all pretty transparent. I did notice, this is the first episode where our protagonist, whose name I really ought to know. Juliet. Boy, does she have a strange accent for the silo. How do you get that accent growing up in a homogenous silo?
Yeah, well, because in the analog, the silo, the South is the lower levels, so the South African accent persists in areas of mechanical.
I mean, I guess she's the actor is from Sweden, I believe.
Oh, she's Swedish. So S is for silo, and lower levels are I don't know.
It only seems to come out during action scenes where I would imagine you're paying as an actor less attention to how you're saying things and more the emotion that you're driving.
There actually are a lot of variations of accents throughout the silo that don't seem to be explained. So I guess we're just supposed to forgive that across the board. Bryce, you were fairly critical of the first 2 episodes. How'd you feel about this 3rd one?
I liked this episode a lot better. I think it certainly is helped by that engine action storyline. That was great. They had the fantastic tension. You get this, the only kind of weirdness about that was this 8 hours thing, right? We're going to shut it down for 8 hours. But then they also kind of kneecap that immediately by saying, well, but we're only really going to get 30 minutes. And then even then they're like, well, this is a TV show, so we're only really getting 22 minutes out of this. So I almost
frankly, I felt that was realistic. Is like, yeah, the government is going to block out a time that covers their ass, 8 hours, whereas the mechanical people are like, yeah, this is going to be done in an hour, or it's going to be off forever.
Yeah.
And the government's like, yeah, we're not telling anyone that. So,
and I more assumed that meant like, oh, something's going to go wrong and it's going to go way past 8 hours. It's going to be like 12 hours, 10, a couple of days or something. But I think I like your reading of it more, Tom. That like, oh, there's probably more of a hard sci-fi reason they said one number and didn't do that exact number. But I like this. I thought this was a step up over the past 2 episodes, and it did feel like we're actually in it. I hope we don't keep changing crew and characters too much more.
No, we focused in, and like I said, that the first is prologue to be like, let's tell you the story of how we got to Juliet Nichols becoming sheriff, and now we've finished that. She's now going to be sheriff. What happens next?
We also have a couple of vignettes that firmly establish that the mayor is not the bad guy. The mayor is on our team as the viewer and wants to understand things, but there's a bad guy over in judicial that the mayor may have to answer to.
Well, and she sure does answer to somebody, because it seems like she got poisoned there at the end.
Yes. Yes. Although before that, I thought it was a very charming vignette that I'm a sucker for 2 old people falling in love.
That was
landed
nice.
with
I like that too. Yeah. So if anybody out there didn't catch it, we clearly see the mayor sign the paperwork that makes Juliet Nichols sheriff. Then we clearly see her being probably poisoned. The implication I take from that is they wanted to stop her from confirming Nichols so they could put their own person in as sheriff, but they didn't realize they were too late. So the paperwork is done. And this is the kind of society that's going to respect the paperwork, right? So I think we're going to see either an interim mayor or perhaps like just a brand new mayor installed by judicial that will be adversarial with the deputy sheriff, who will decide not to step down, perhaps, and Nichols, who is trying to find out the truth.
There was one very, very, very brief nod to our larger story, which is when the power went out, the displays gave just a hint of what we were led to believe is the real outside world.
Yeah.
That's
and
the
you
first
saw
time
one character
everybody
both
was able to
before
see
and after. One noticed that, and the other time they focused on her just looking relieved. So I have a feeling that character comes back.
Wait, which
Oh, I
character?
didn't
There was a woman sitting on the floor when it flipped and you saw the green, who was like, you saw her notice that. And then when the power came back on, you just see her like, thank goodness the power's back on. And it's like, okay, why did we show the same person both
that's
times?
the planting of a seed of doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, why would the screen do that? How could it do that? What kind of cache could it have that it should? Okay.
These are the questions.
Okay.
Yes.
They're sprinkling them. They're sprinkling little question sprinkles.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing. Bonnie was the one that noticed, and I don't know if it was written with this intent in mind, but oftentimes when a character is called to action, they will have a heavy-handed metaphor, and we see Juliet drown almost, trying to keep the thing alive. So we have kind of a moment of death and rebirth in that, and then suddenly she's like, now let's get to work on me being sheriff. So I can't decide if that was heavy-handed or just the right amount on that.
Yeah, and if you can't decide, that's probably a good sign, I think. I was a little, first I thought you were talking about the rope, where they left us with a cliffhanger of her like hanging at the rope at the end, and she lost her flashlight. And we begin this episode with her like, well, I guess I'll just climb back up.
I'm leaving.
Climbed up.
Bye. I found a bunch of water. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, that it's all we are complete with the refusal of the call, and now we're ready to explore the new.
If it's connected to water, that means it's connected to a water source, which means you could leave the silo
through the water source?
potentially.
They talked about how the water comes in to cool the engine, but they don't know where it comes from.
Don't know where it comes from.
They just have to real quick invent scuba equipment.
There's some relics. You got some scuba relics.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on Silo?
Nah, that's it.
That is Silo Season 1, Episode 3. So we've got one more week of the same lineup. Next time on Spoilerin Time, it's Succession, the Season 4, Episode 9 finale, Ted Lasso, Apple TV Plus, Season 3, Episode 10, and Silo, Season 1, Episode 4. You get these episodes cut up into bite-sized chunks, and you get them early if you're a patron at patreon.com/Cordkillers. So if you're not supporting us already, please go give us $1 or $2, just a little value back for the value we give you, and we will talk to you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.